Here's a look at some of the most disgusting TCAP moments ever. So in January 2006, Roberto Forte engaged in a strange 49-minute chat, discussing intimate details with someone he just met online. The conversation took an odd turn as Forte shared personal experiences, gave questionable advice, and sent inappropriate images. The dude was waving around some serious red flags. Now, this is where the plot thickened. After this disturbing online chat, Forte decided to make a journey to the address, a house in Mira Loma, Riverside, California. He had no rubber, but thought bringing some booze along would somehow help the cause. But that wasn't all. He also brought some lube and, wait for it, a camera. But look who we have here. Chris confronted Forte after he fell into the trap set by Del Harvey. But in a drastic turn of events, Forte quickly admitted that what he did was stupid and that he totally deserved to get humiliated. Huh, don't you think it's a little too late for that?
Screw up.
You were screwed up?
Yes.
How did you screw up then?
Because I shouldn't have done what I did.
Well, at least he was owning up to it, right? But if you thought he stopped calling himself an idiot after that, you're wrong. At this point, I can't tell if he was being serious or if this was all part of his act.
You're an idiot.
Yes, totally idiot. I'm very sorry.
He mentioned having a camera and booze, but denied using them for any unsavory activity. Classic move. Deny, deny, deny.
Nothing.
Nothing.
No. Well,
Unlike some others caught in similar situations, Forte didn't try to shift the blame, admitting he should have known better. Well, I'm glad he took the blame, but that doesn't mean he meant it.
nothing.
Nothing. Then why did you bring the camera?
But when Chris revealed his true identity and that the whole conversation was on tape, Forte started to get defensive. No surprises there. But he didn't try to run. He stayed and argued that it was wrong for Dateline to broadcast.
Can you turn the camera off for a minute?
I can't do that.
Huh. If he didn't want to get put on blast, I feel like there was something he could have done to prevent it from happening. Chris smoothly sidestepped Forte's concern about his family seeing him on the news and handed him a business card. Forte, however, was more worried about them showing his face and everything.
I can't say right now as we speak.
Yeah, well, you were planning on showing everything to the setup, right? Why is it such a huge problem now? Guess what? Forte's full interview with Chris didn't hit the airwaves immediately, but it eventually surfaced as bonus content. As for the camera he brought along, wonder what he was planning on doing with it. Anyway, after he left the house, the grand finale. The police swooped in and immediately arrested him. As if that wasn't enough, when asked if he ever gone all the way with other guys, Forte shrugged and replied saying, "It happened." Wait, what? This guy casually admitted to hooking up with people online, but claimed that they were all grown-ups? Do you believe him? Because I don't. And if you're with me on this one, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and turn on my post notification. And don't forget to check out my social media pages where I'm gonna keep more amazing content coming your way. Now, coming back to Forte, this is where things started to get crazier as he started worrying about his wife finding out he was bisexual. Well, maybe you should have thought about that before trying to get with Del Harvey, huh? In a world full of questionable decisions, Forte took the cake with his 49 minutes of fame and the weirdest chat to Stinghouse journey ever. Move on to the next guy, hoping he has a better package of lies to deliver. But sadly, once again, I'm left disappointed. Yeah, this guy flexing his muscles and showing off his tongue piercing is James Rutherford. And well, since he'd bared his body for her, he made an outlandish demand for her to do the same. Yeah, this dude was a firm believer of give and take. Only this time, the setup he was dealing with would end up taking a lot more from him than he'd bargained. But since PJ didn't want to lose their grip on him, they decided to go with the flow. The setup decided to obey his command, and in return, the prick offered to do something extremely off-putting.
He says, "I owe you something now, don't I?"
And then he starts pulling the boxers down a little bit.
Somehow that was supposed to land him his lovely date. On the contrary, it just goes to show you how wild his thought process was. But anyway, since the setup was being such a good girl, the prick decided to give her a little treat. A treat she'd never asked for.
Alright, let's pull up my webcam first.
The lengths that these people will go. Like, he doesn't even have to visit the Stinghouse anymore. He'd already buried himself neck deep in trouble without even leaving the comfort of his own home. And for some strange reason, Rutherford had second thoughts about where the conversation was headed to. You know, after dropping those nasty pics. While the PJ team were all geared up to nab this creep, Rutherford decided to call the setup in an attempt to call off the plan. Now this is where the setup's talent was put to the test. Would she be able to lure him in?
I'm so bored here.
It appears the man is having second thoughts.
Turns out that sweet voice was too much for this meathead, and look what happened.
The decoy goes out to wave him in.
Come on in.
Yeah, now that is one way to impress someone, or at least that's what he thought. And guess what? He barely took a few hours to make the entrance he almost canceled. Well, of course, he was desperate for action, but that doesn't mean he didn't exercise caution. When he walked up to the door, the setup almost immediately called out to him.
The door's open.
But Rutherford wanted to be sure. At this point, he was probably wondering if it was the same person he talked to sometime earlier. And only when he was sure did he make his entrance. And how?
No, I promise I'll be right back.
Yeah, this dude thought he was real smooth. Did you see how he signaled the setup to come to him? But he's far from the suave guy he thinks he is. Just your average garden variety creep. Either way, the dude was just standing by the door for what was maybe 10 whole seconds, trying to figure out if he should really step in or out of the door. But before he could make up his mind, Chris decided to show up, and you have to see how he signaled him to take a seat.
You can have a seat right over there, please.
Yeah, what goes around comes around. I mean, Chris, take a bow, man. This dude just knows how to roast people. And what was Rutherford's reaction? Oh, sure he did. This dude had his own doubts about the whole meetup right from the start. But I have to say, the excuse he came up with was pretty dumb.
I just came to hang out, really.
You came to hang out.
Yeah.
Pricks like him have been giving new definitions to what it means to hang out. But Chris was far beyond falling for this sort of nonsense, given the 200-odd pricks he grilled during his time on the show. He knew just where to strike to get what he wanted. Well, he hit a nerve. Wait a minute, did you see how he laid his own dirty thoughts on the table? All Chris had to do was to probe him a bit, and the dude simply laid it all out. Was it guilt, or was it a desperate move to save face? We'll find out.
I'm going through a divorce. I just wanted to get out of the house.
Nah, not the same old my marriage is on the rocks story. See, I get the whole I want to get out of my house, live my life kind of attitude when things aren't exactly going so hot on the home front. But like, going on a drive around town or drinking with the boys is a far cry from whatever this is. Sometimes, correction, most times, the reason these freaks give make absolutely no sense. And Rutherford was no different.
Has seen our investigations before and doesn't want to reveal what he does for a living on national TV.
But Chris wasn't about to let him get away with it. Yeah, that's another thing about creeps like him. Once they realize they're in trouble, they start playing the victim card. But sadly for him, Chris wasn't buying his story. Yeah, probably the only time in his life when he wasn't exactly too proud of his profession. Despite Chris probing, Rutherford remained hesitant. But why? The dude had clearly dragged himself into a huge mess. But that didn't stop him from demanding answers from Chris. However, no matter how hard Chris tried, the dude simply wouldn't cough up what he did for a living on national television. But eventually, the truth came out.
6th grade.
6th grade. So you teach kids.
How? I mean, just how can a 6th grade teacher think of doing something as vile as this? The setup he was just meeting was pretty much around the same age as his student. Just imagine the number of kids he was in contact with. And who knows, maybe he tried his luck with his students as well. I mean, as sad as it is, I really don't doubt it. And Chris wanted to make sure Rutherford realized the gravity of what he had done.
I don't know why. I need help.
Yeah, so this is one of the most commonly used means of escape that pricks resort to. They claim to have mental issues. Well, if that's the case, you should be visiting a therapist. How the heck was the setup going to help you out with your problem? But Chris' expression said it all. The dude displayed all signs of being perfectly sane. And suddenly, when he was pushed into a corner, the insanity sprung up from where exactly? His story was a mess. And when he realized that, you won't believe what he said next.
Thursday told me she was leaving me.
Wow, really, dude? Is that what you're going to go with now? Now, let's not forget how he was pulling his pants down for the world to see like 2 hours ago. And just when you thought you'd seen it all, he had another twist in store.
I don't know if this week has just pushed me over the edge.
Apparently, this wasn't his first time chatting with someone much younger than him. Well, I guess I may have been right about the student thing. But well, thankfully Chris got him before he could do any more damage. Here comes a real estate agent who wasn't exactly looking for the right kind of property to invest. 34-year-old Mohammed found himself entangled in a web of deceptions when things took a disgusting turns as he delved into personal questions. From questioning the purity of his chat companion and inquiring about intimate experiences, this dude's conversation was unhinged. To add to the unsettling nature, Mohammed sent explicit pictures with the faces cropped off. Dude wanted to show just about everything, I guess, but the face. Nah, that's too far. Anyway, he eventually arranged a late-night meetup at the Sting House. And well, what do you know? Encouraged by an invitation, he entered with an unsuspecting smile.
How are you? Good. How was your drive?
Good. You're gonna leave this door?
However, he was only to be met with an unexpected turn of events orchestrated by none other than Chris and the entire PJ team. Attempting to salvage his composure, Mohammed concocted a feeble story about being invited into the house. And that is when Chris, in an attempt to dismantle deceit, questioned the authenticity of his little tale.
Blonde woman out there, and she waved at you.
Abdallah's facade crumbled as Chris confronted him with the explicit chat log, leaving little room for denial.
And you say sleep on your back and open them wide open. What did you mean by that?
Guys like him often resort to elaborate lies when caught, but this man was in serious denial and somehow couldn't remember who he texted.
When was that?
As Chris pressed Abdallah with incriminating evidence, the real estate agent grudgingly admitted to sending inappropriate pictures, discarding the last remnants of denial he clung to when cropping the images. Honestly, I don't have a clue why people try to deny things with the chat logs being waved in front of their faces. Like, at that point, you've lost.
I would never say to someone like that. Never.
Now, Chris dissected Abdallah's excuses. The attempt to deflect blame onto his office location proved futile as Chris exposed the inconsistencies in his statement, pushing Abdallah into a corner. But what he said next was insane.
Egyptian, I'm Muslim. I don't do this stuff.
We'll lick you all over.
Realizing the gravity of the situation, Abdallah attempted a hasty retreat after learning he walked into a Dateline investigation.
Outside, the Flagler Beach police are racing into position.
The Flagler Beach Police Department swiftly moved in to apprehend him, resulting in a dramatic takedown outside the house. Once at the police station, Abdallah kept up his defiance, throwing shade at the officers with a hell of a lot of passive aggression. He refused to play nice during a search and quickly lawyered up, which was well within his rights, sure, but come on, you got caught. Even though he pleaded not guilty, Abdallah took it up a notch, pulling a disappearing act before his trial. As of February 2021, there was still a bench warrant out for him. Yeah, he's still out there somewhere. Abdallah's vanishing act makes you wonder if our legal system's really on top of things when it comes to serving justice. Hopefully, they'll catch him eventually. But here comes the king of manipulation. I'm talking about Gregory Stewart, a 44-year-old credit and corrections consultant who was caught red-handed. Now Greg, armed with a pizza and some questionable intentions, made his way to the meetup spot. But let's not forget the rubber he conveniently stashed in his coat pocket. As he spotted the setup, Greg could hardly contain his excitement.
It looked like he was going to start chasing me.
The meeting unfolded with a series of questions, and when grilled about the pizza and his protection, Greg awkwardly confirmed carrying them. The pizza, sadly, was left chilling in his car while he kept that other item close at hand. Priorities all wrong here.
Did you bring the or anything?
Yeah, I did, during my coat.
But what makes it worse is that he blatantly agreed to it.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Even I'm uncomfortable. As Chris arrived, Greg's composed demeanor started to crack. His voice trembled as he muttered something about getting ready to go, attempting to mask the brewing panic.
Nothing, I just came down to hang out, that's all.
Initially, Greg tried to lie about his age, but the weight of the situation forced him to admit to everything. In a last-ditch effort to wriggle out of the mess, Greg, using the pizza as his lifeline, proposed a deal. Please, if you let me go, you can have a pizza or whatever. Spoiler alert, Chris wasn't willing to take the bait. I mean, obviously, pizzas costed like, what, $3 back then?
You can have the pizza, whatever I brought down.
Oh, you're gonna give me the pizza?
No.
Denied freedom and probably his pizza, Greg's hopes were shattered. But if you think he stopped there, he didn't.
Very close to my family, my mother's very sick.
Thankfully, the police finally sprang into action, busting in to apprehend Greg. And the next thing, the handcuffs came out, and in a rather undignified manner, Greg found himself face down in the sand. As the police carried him away, they inquired if he was carrying anything. Greg, in a feeble attempt at humor, asked something ridiculous.
What, drugs? Spread your feet.
Well, the iron isn't lost on anyone, least of all me. The legal aftermath unfolded with Greg pleading guilty, leading to a lifetime of parole and registration as an offender. Yes, he earned himself a lifetime of surveillance for a few moments of pleasure that he didn't even get to cash in on. Talk about a steep price to pay, and he lost his piece. In the grand scheme of things, the legal consequences were pretty lenient here. Lifetime parole and offender registration might not be the harshest penalties, considering the potential harm that could have transpired if Chris and his crew had not been there to stop it. But what this 23-year-old was up to was even crazier. Sometime in March 2006, the virtual world witnessed the escapades of Ronell Stevens-Tunn. Operating under the screen name Come Ride and Chill With Me, since Netflix and chill wouldn't enter the public lexicon until 2009, he dove into yet another chat room in search of someone he really shouldn't be meeting up with. Now, buckle up, because this online rendezvous is about to take a rather bizarre turn. Stevens-Tunn's, in a dazzling display of charm, confessed his single status, and without missing a beat, asked the person to be his little Miami. Not stopping there, he threw in an offer of engaging in inappropriate activities if she so desired. Now, Romeo here went the extra mile, dropping a whopping 2 hours from Fort Wayne, Indiana to Darke County, Ohio, all in the hopes of meeting the setup at her grandmother's place. On arriving, Stevens-Tunn had a little surprise waiting for him. Not a love-struck teenager, but the one and only Chris.
Bring your bag and come on over here for a minute, will you?
Talk about a plot twist. Now exposed, Stevens-Tunn quickly declared he was no stranger to Dateline's exploits.
I've seen this on TV. You've seen this on TV before.
As if that was a badge of honor. Oh, and did I mention, he served in the military and was deployed in Iraq? It's almost like he thought that his service made him above the law.
So you smelled a rat? Yeah. But you came anyway.
When Chris confronted him about the possibility of going all the way, Stevens-Tunn gave a pretty confusing response.
Other ways, I would say no because I really haven't,
He felt like that he should apologize, but then again, he felt like he didn't have to because, well, nothing actually happened, right?
So it was more like a 50-50. A 50-50 deal.
The audacity. And he had the nerve to agree that it was a good thing that the crew was there instead of an actual person of that age.
That it ain't progressed to nothing further.
Talk about missing the point entirely. Oh, and like any other loser on the show, he put the blame on her.
She's the one that brought all that up.
Post-exposure, Stevens-Tunn faced legal consequences, charged with 1 count of attempted unlawful conduct. He was consistently tardy to his court appearances, settlement hearings, and appointments. The drama reached its peak during the trial, where he and his lawyer played the classic entrapment card, blaming NBC for his troubles. But that excuse never stood a chance because, unsurprisingly, the jury wasn't buying it. In a swift hour and a half, they reached a unanimous guilty verdict in March of 2007. Skipping ahead, Stevens-Tunn's delinquency extended to his own sentencing, resulting in a little detour to Indiana for a stint in detention before finally reaching Ohio. The judge, not amused by his repeated tardiness, deemed probation inefficient. Cue the gavel, and Stevens-Tunn was sentenced to 7 months in jail, probation, a fine of $250, and a laundry list of restitution costs. Oh, and let's not forget, he was officially labeled an offender. Now that's the kind of punishment I like to see. And now, make way for this next weirdo. So the man you're looking at right now is Timothy Isaac, a 42-year-old who liked to ask inappropriate questions of strangers online about things like preferences for intimate attire, specifically thong. But the cringe factor doesn't stop there. As their digital banter continued, Isaac's curiosity piqued about her proximity, age, and relationship status. He even threw in a concern for potential discovery, asking about her parents and their snooping habit. It's almost as if he was worried about getting caught. But Isaac wasn't done yet. He shifted gears, urging her to keep their online rendezvous hush-hush, escalating the conversation with explicit desires to meet in person. The language turned suggestive, with Isaac leaving little to the imagination, even asking if she was up for some rather graphic activities. Cut to the late hours of the night, Isaac finally arrived at the rendezvous spot. He immediately asked where she was and attempted to keep things casual.
I have to go change out of my clothes, okay?
Okay.
Answer Chris.
Why don't you have a seat right over here for me?
As Chris dug into Isaac's intention, our man here tried to downplay why he was there.
A friend asked me to come over.
A friend. And who's that friend?
We've all heard that one too many times at this point. But Chris wasn't letting him off the hook. Isaac tried to justify himself, saying the setup told him she was legal over the phone, conveniently overlooking the part where it was made clear exactly how old she was. But this is when Chris called out his lies, pushing Isaac to come clean.
15 or 16, but I said, no, you gotta be 18.
Really?
In a sudden twist, Isaac admitted he had a gut feeling something was off and owned up to driving for hours just to reach the house.
Kinda figured something was going on.
I mean, at least he admitted it.
I don't know, just somebody wanted to meet me and...
Still, he insisted that there were no plans for inappropriate activities, dropping the bomb that he had 2 sons. Ah man, this just keeps getting worse.
I mean, to like do anything or anything. I got boys that are 20 and 21, sir.
But wait, there's more. Chris delved into Isaac's past. Turns out he had a history with prison, serving time for a DUI offense in the past.
Some DUI.
DUI?
Yeah. Nothing like this, sir.
I don't know if you guys feel it, but there was something about his tone that was really eerie. Isaac nervously questioned if he was about to be arrested, to which Chris clarified he lacked the authority. What followed next was the cameraman zooming in on Isaac's face and the panic-stricken man of the hour hitting the door.
We'd like to hear it. If not, obviously, you're free to leave.
Thank you.
Right then, law enforcement swooped in before he could make his grand escape. Like, did Isaac really think spinning a bunch of lies would magically make everything okay? Props to the law enforcement folks who shut down Isaac's attempts to dodge consequences. Those lies and terrible choices of his finally caught up with him. Now, that was hard to watch. I mean, just think about it. What must be running in this guy's mind to even say something like that? Obviously, he didn't mean it, and no matter how hard you try, you just can't separate the sarcasm from it. But that's the route Aladdin chose to get away from Chris's grip. And that was the beginning of an extremely long string of lies.
Yeah, I know that the house is for sale.
Oh, that this house is for sale?
Yes.
Yeah, right. That piece of information Aladdin just shared, not even the PJ crew were aware of it. Well, he had to come up with some explanation, but the whole sale deed thing, nah, it just didn't land the way he wanted to. Oh, and did you catch Chris's reaction?
Oh, that this house is for sale?
Yes.
Yeah, he was ridiculing Aladdin's lame excuse, and why wouldn't he, right? I mean, it's not the first time dudes have put the Sting House up for sale. Do you remember anybody who suddenly found new interest in the real estate market after seeing Chris? I could think of a few names, but I want to see how many of you can get them right. So go ahead and drop those names in the comments and show the world how big of a TCAP fan you really are. Meanwhile, let's take a deeper dive into Aladdin's world of lies, which sadly had no magical powers.
He lied online about his age, saying he was 35. He's really 46.
Yes, the tried and true age manipulation move. Aladdin conveniently chose to shave off nearly a decade from his actual age just to appear a bit more appealing. I mean, was it somehow going to land him a better date? According to his logic, it totally would. But anyway, the PJ crew dug up his actual age, and the dude turned out to be all of 46 years. And when it was time to shoulder the blame, he chose to randomly blame a friend for leading him into the trap. But you have to give it to him. The dude turned out to be smarter than most others. He realized that his lies weren't going to take him far enough to walk away consequence-free. And when Chris asked him one more time just what the heck he was here to do, Aladdin coughed up the truth.
Why did you really come here?
To see what's her name, Sarah.
Sarah.
Yes.
There we go. I mean, there's nothing like a good dose of truth. Now, these few words paved the way for Chris to dig deeper into this moron's story. With every question Chris asked, Aladdin decided to come clean.
So all that other stuff in the house and all that, that was all a big fat lie?
Yes.
Okay.
And after a string of admissions, Aladdin decided to throw in some more lies just to keep Chris on his toes.
He tries to convince me that the girl, Sarah, is 18.
No. Don't you go back to lying again, you creep. I mean, come on. I thought we had a good thing going here. Anyway, Chris decided to jog the prick's memory, and to do this, he went straight for the chat logs.
She tells you here that she's 12 years old.
Yeah, plain and simple. You knew it, Aladdin. You acknowledged it even. So what's with the "I thought she was 18" jab? I mean, seriously, you got this tall dude standing right in your face, holding up the chat logs, and you still have the guts to lie? Now, that's courage on another level. Or stupidity. Probably both. But anyway, let me cut to the most extreme moment of this dude's interrogation with Chris. a move that left Chris puzzled.
Whoa. What are you doing?
Yeah, he simply glided his way down to the ground. Nice and slow, so he doesn't really hurt himself in the process, but at the same time trying to instill fear in Chris's mind. Fear of what? Keep watching.
I am fine, just kind of.
I think he meant to say, I'm fine, it's just a heart attack, because that's what all heart attack victims say right after going through one, right? Well, Aladdin seemed to have the answers to that as well, because what he did next was baffling. No, that's not a replay I just played, but rather a second heart attack during the grueling interrogation. Poor guy. Oh no. Can somebody please escort him to the nearest hospital? I'm sure the big and strong police officers would be happy to help. And I think we've already seen enough of him. You have to listen to what this guy did for a living.
He tells her he's a fireman.
Well, this fireman was clearly up to no good, and instead of spending time saving lives, this is what he was up to.
Call my cell and leave a sexy message.
This dude seemed to be someone who loved taking risks, and even his profession demanded him to do so. But the kind of risk he was taking by indulging in a conversation with someone so young is pretty disturbing. Right from his crazy demands to his cheesy attempt in trying to woo her, this creep showed absolutely no respect for boundaries.
He seems to have a thing for feet.
Want me to rub your feet?
As if the whole conversation wasn't weird enough. Looked like Mr. Loser here had a thing for feet, and he clearly made that nasty little detail quite clear in his chat. Now, all he wanted was a green signal from the setup, and Jason was on his feet, no pun intended, barreling towards the setup at Mach 10. When Jason arrived, he was instantly taken by the setup, but before he could get to her, Chris got in his way.
Have a seat right on the other side of the bar for me, will you? Keep your hands out of your pockets for me.
Sorry, bro, your creepy little fantasy of massaging the setup's feet would have to wait. But as it turns out, Chris had a better plan in mind.
What's going on?
Now, as TCAP fans, interviews at the Sting House are just another day on the job, especially since everybody loves using the same excuse playbook. But each of them come with a little twist to make them a little more unique. And just like that, in Jason's case, only 2 seconds into the interview, the drama started.
I'm sorry.
Wow. I'm really shocked at the amount of effort this dude put into the apology. Well, of course he wasn't sorry for what he did, but sorry that he got caught. And no matter how hard Chris tried to get him to speak, the only thing this jerk managed was this.
I'm sorry.
Unfortunately for him, no amount of apologizing can excuse everything he'd done so far. And in the midst of it all, the dude dropped another bomb.
What would have happened if I had not been here?
I would have done something stupid.
Oh man! He straight up accepted that he would have gone all the way if the setup was willing. Now, that's a confession that even the most seasoned Sting House visitor struggled to put into words. But Jason, he was pretty sure where this whole trice was headed to, and he had no qualms about admitting it. But that didn't stop him from trying to play innocent.
You ever watch Dateline? Dateline NBC?
Yeah, he started to act like he didn't understand what was happening around him. And when he saw no way out of the situation, his story started changing.
Have you ever seen our stories on computer predators?
Yeah, I've seen it.
This is one of them.
But here's where you need to know about this guy. This dude knew about the show all along. And instead of learning a thing or two and staying out of trouble, this dude decided to try his luck anyway, because it could never happen to him, right? Anyway, in the end, this fireman ended up getting burned. He took a plunge into some nasty business that not only cost him his job, but also the respect society had in him. Speaking of respect, here comes a grandpa who went rogue. At a time when Stephen Coates should have been enjoying a laid-back life, he decided to play with fire. And with our good old pal Jason behind bars, nobody was gonna be able to put it out for him. Anyway, trust me, the confidence that this man had was monumental. Clearly, it wasn't his first rodeo. This dude was a habitual offender, and I can say that just by his calm and collected attitude. But don't be fooled by his age, because this weirdo still had a, well, weird air about himself. He thought he was cool enough to woo someone as young as his grandkids. I mean, just take a look at how he showed up at the Sting House.
Hey, hold on at the kitchen counter for a second. I gotta finish brushing my teeth.
Okay.
I have to admit, this grandpa's got some mood. And when he showed up at the Sting House, he made sure to bring presents. Presents which he would never be able to share with the setup.
Good evening, how are you? Oh, why don't you have a seat on the stool there, please?
Yes, Chris was ready to bombard Steven with his questions, but that didn't seem to break the jerk's confidence. He continued to talk like Chris's presence didn't bother him in the slightest. And just when Chris was about to get started, Steven decided to take matters into his own hands.
What's going on? Go ahead, please sit.
I'm good.
Yeah, this man was quick on his feet. Chris really tried his best to calm the grandpa down, but Steven just didn't want to listen. He seemed to be worried about the so-called present he'd brought along, and guess what it was?
It's just a CD.
Of what? That's it?
This is some songs I have.
A CD. And I shouldn't even need to tell you what was on the thing, but trust me, that's the last thing I expected he'd bring with him. And at this point, Chris was done being nice.
I was doing something that I shouldn't be.
But Steven wasn't ready to listen.
Why don't you tell me?
Sir, I just want to go, okay, please?
There came a point when Steven wasn't even willing to listen to Chris. It almost looked like he was having a nervous breakdown.
I'm stupid.
How old are you, Steve?
I'm stupid.
How old are you?
Soon, panic took over him and he wanted out immediately. But hey, not so fast, you prick.
One is, I'm Chris Hansen with Dateline NBC, and we're doing a story.
Sadly for him, he wasn't ready for what was waiting for him outside the door.
I beg of you,
You beg of me what?
Well, no amount of begging would do him any good at this point. If only Steven had, not reached out to someone his grandchildren's age over the internet, he'd be home with his family and not in jail. Shame. So who do you think was the worst of them all? Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and turn on my post notifications. And if you found this video crazy, you have to see the next one right here. It's even better.